Hey Jake, how are you?
Hey James, good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Not too bad.
Hold up for hiding from COVID like the rest of us, I assume. Is that they still do that over there in the UK?
I'm not in the UK anymore.
You're not.
But it's yeah, it's pretty bad here in Europe. So yeah.
All right. Are you still with the BBC? I wasn't sure.
No, no, I left a couple of months ago.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, where'd you go?
Somewhere else. I'm still trying to sort it out with my employer, like my standards participation. So this is all
Gotcha.
like I am not affiliated right now.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good to see you. I will have to find your replacement, I guess, and talk to them.
I'm not sure they're replacing me,
Hmm.
but I do the things that we've talked about in the past, like recently, that's still being picked up by my colleagues. So that's still being picked
Great.
up by former colleagues. Sorry, wow, you tell us still haven't let go yet.
Yeah, yeah.
um, yeah, it
All
tells
right.
them that they're
Hey
still
everyone.
Hey, Kyle.
morning.
Now I know my audio works. Great.
Good.
Keep going. You don't have to stop on my account.
Oh, we were just catching
Nah,
up.
yeah.
Man, Jake, your video is potato quality. Oh my God.
Looks pretty good for me.
No, it's pretty potato, mate.
All right. Why don't I stop it?
No. I mean, we need to see your shining happy face.
All right.
It's just, a very pixelated, shiny, happy
All right.
face.
Maybe I should get the green screen.
It's interesting. I think it's you, not him. I see Jacob fine, and I see you pixelating sometimes. You're fine
Yeah.
now.
Well, I'm using the
Just
I'm
pixel.
using the web interface, so that might have something to do with it.
Yeah, the pixelation's coming in and out on you.
Okay.
Yeah, I see you as a little bit choppy, Kyle. It looks mostly okay, but
Oh man, I've got I'm using Cake. I've got low pings everywhere.
I've got cake also. Yeah, it's um,
Shit works.
but that won't address necessarily the bandwidth, just the turnaround time.
Well, yeah, but I think I've got like 9 megabits up, so should be, I mean, more than enough for the quality of the video.
Oh, maybe I
Here.
should. I've got obviously a multicast video stream running that's been up for a few days. Maybe I should turn it off just
Well, no,
to
but isn't there only
improve.
one outbound stream? So
No,
that's like the point, right?
it's inbound.
Oh
So
well, even
yeah, should be
but
fine.
it's still only one copy, right? So
Yeah, it's just one copy for me.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning, Eric.
morning. All right, I'm gonna go find the meeting materials since we've got 1 minute left until we start.
No, be serious, right? Guy, you need to be serious until the job.
Hello again. I haven't seen you in hours.
Yeah, indeed.
Oh, meeting materials. I mean, we're going to wait a few minutes anyway for Leslie to show up. Seems she's stuck in another meeting or something like that.
I guess Spencer said he's not going to be here for the first half. And I haven't
Yeah.
heard anything from Ali, so I don't know.
Like even like at all since the start of the flurry of activity this past week. Okay.
Yeah, he might be out this week or something. I don't know what. I hope he's okay. I have no idea.
Let me see if I can find Ali on Slack.
Hello, everybody. We might as well chat while waiting for.
You changed name again, Warren.
I did. I finally figured out how to make WebEx mostly let me change my name. I'm quite pleased with that.
Yeah, how do you do that? Because I need to do that.
So what I did is I went through my browser and I removed all cookies associated with WebEx. And now when I start WebEx, before I join the meeting, on the top left of the corner, there's a it has your name with a little pencil icon, and you can change it. Before I deleted my cookies, it wasn't giving me that. I don't quite understand how the WebEx app is getting information out of my, browser cookies, but something scary, something. So.
By the way, I pinged Ali, and Ali just dropped off another call. He's about to be joining in a minute or two. So he just standards groups transition.
Yep. So while waiting, we're randomly
Hunting for the
chatting.
pencil.
I think that you get that only when you join the meeting. So delete all of your cookies, quit WebEx. When you come back in, just before you join the meeting, you get in the top left of the WebEx. At least that's how it is on the macOS version.
Yeah, that's what I'm on. Yeah.
Okay.
Zoom lets you do it during the meeting, which is funny because you can change during the meeting. You can change who you are.
Yep.
It depends fun if you are participants, right? If you are the chair, you don't think it's fun, but it's okay.
The reconnecting one that some kid apparently did a month ago, I think has to be the most brilliant choice of name to do for logging in by. That kid should get just passed that schooling, just promoted. That's brilliant.
I don't know. I learned that for the IETF presenter account, to log in an incognito window, because otherwise, like I am IETF MOPS forever, and I haven't been able to figure out how to stop that from being true. Erased cookies, everything, right? Deleted all the local browser store, and nonetheless, every meeting I joined, I was IETF MOPS.
So yeah, that's
really
what
irritating.
That's why I was changing my name, was to try and test that and figure it out. And for me, it's delete all the cookies, and then after that, when you first join a meeting, before you actually enter, there is in the top left a edit spot.
Okay.
At least that worked for me, and has worked for me 4 or 5 times in a row now.
So do you think that the broader internet, the people that look to us to set the standards would be terrified to know this is our conversation?
You've obviously never joined the pre-IESG Tiller chat thing, which is, I mean, this is hugely intelligent compared to that. That's like 5 minutes of drivel about making coffee, or like a bird I saw outside my window or something.
Or about infected mushroom.
Hey, that's reasonable and intelligent conversation.
How about I follow some brand new pencils and none of them work because none of them have a pointy end on them? How do I make them have a pointy end?
That's what a bread knife is for.
Chad, who needs all those 10 fingers?
Oh, I just got a message from Leslie. She's working on it, presumably running into some technical difficulties. So give it another couple minutes. We've only got one topic on the agenda anyway, so.
On the other hand, you can already start. I guess you will have some Notewell slide, right, at the beginning.
Yeah, so can you guys see that?
Yep.
Okay. What does it look like on your screen? I can't tell.
Full screen.
Like a well slide.
Okay. Excellent.
Now the date is marked July 28th. So something is either my PC is wrong, or the summer is wrong.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure Leslie just copied it directly from the 108 slide deck. So
Yeah, it says 108 on the bottom.
yeah.
There's another standards org I participate in where they actually got somebody to read out their version of Notewell, and they just play it at the beginning of every meeting so everybody can hear it.
Hey, welcome. Well, we
After
heard you
this
for a
many
second.
years of after this many years of funding calendars, it's embarrassing when you get an off by 1 hour error in your calendar.
Oh. I figured it was some sort of technical difficulty, but
No, I'm going to fully admit it was a. Here we are.
all right. Welcome. Okay, so we might as well get started. I've got the Notewell slide up. So everyone,
Good.
Notewell.
Indeed.
And here's the agenda.
And I'll take a moment to thank everybody for coming. I appreciate that this time slot is not ideal for many different time zones. As we've had a fairly quiet mailing list, it's nice to see people have actually come to participate in this discussion.
Of course, I could have spent the last 10 minutes trying to get Note Taker and JabberScribe. I did not because I wasn't thinking about that. Anybody interested in taking notes? Like, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure I can handle the JabberScribing, but anyone? Notes?
I can volunteer to do part of it if somebody else would be happy to help out.
That would be great. Thanks, ADD Working Group.
Yeah, we already had that conversation about how changing your name on WebEx can be hard.
There was also a question from Spencer about where are we actually doing the shared note-taking page, and I'm not sure. I didn't get a chance to solve that as I was trying to solve my calendar issues.
Yeah, does it not create an Etherpad link for
I just pasted the link to the codim stuff in the chat of the WebEx, so you should see it. Okay. It's anyway, if you go to Google for IETF upcoming meetings, you find the MOPS one, and then you get the Etherpad, which is now the CodimD.
CodimD.
So,
excellent.
What we do without that, right?
Great, thanks. I will get that sent out to.
By the way, when I do this, do the slides disappear?
No.
Oh, excellent. better even than Mac OS. So I just switched to a different virtual desktop, and it's still broadcasting whatever was in the slides window.
If you're doing it full screen, then it's probably its own virtual desktop.
No, it's not actually full screen. It's just a window, but it might be pulling it directly from the X paint, wherever it's painting the buffer that it paints to. So I don't know. This is an area of the technology stack I have never looked into.
Great. So again, thanks, Glenn, for volunteering to work on the minutes. And now that we all have the link, I'll invite others to get in there and help with the note taking.
Quick question. I'm going to be running through issues from a slot or GitHub.
Yeah, that's the part of the plan.
Okay, then I can copy and paste those over. Does that make things easier?
Okay, great. So we have note takers. We have described in the form of Kyle. Thank you all. Any bashes to the agenda? Not hearing any. Then we'll move on to effectively handing the mic over to Jake after I take the opportunity to thank Jake for putting together the draft text and thinking through the issues that we're going to go through today. So over to you, Jake.
Great, thanks, Leslie. Do you want to bring up my slides? And
Yes.
We should also thank Stuart. He also posted some text to an issue, I'm sure, to address one of the issues. It's good to have some motion on this. And I'll give a little, my slides are here. Update on
just give me a second. I'm still wrangling the screen sharing, and how's that look?
Yep, looks good.
Excellent.
All right, so this is what we're talking about. I'm Jake Holland. Let's go to the next. So what we'll go over today is we have a milestone in our working group milestones list. We'll need to go over where we are on that. There's been a couple of proposed text updates, one of which tries to address the issue that we talked about in our last meeting about the a section on the addressing latency considerations and giving mention to some of the protocols that there were concerns about scope.
It's going to cross it on this side. That side will be.
I am hearing.
Yeah, somebody's not muted that thinks that they are muted.
Yeah, you get. It looks like Raman. Can we? I don't think I can.
Yeah, thanks.
All right.
Yeah, I just muted all the people who aren't speaking. So
great. You still hear me? Okay, good. Okay, so there's two issues that have gotten some updates. I plan to spend maybe it won't take very long, but one of them had some scope questions raised, and so we'll go over that. I'll give an update on the solicitations we're seeing, or not so much, and go over the kind of list of open issues, and seek some comments. So yeah, next slide. The short answer on our milestone status is that we're behind. We were supposed to be aiming to go into last call this November. I gather, at least from my side, this has been severely impacted by the sort of crazy world we live in this year, and the demands, the unusual level of demands coming out of that. You know, I do think there's still interest in this topic. I think we've seen, you know, certainly on my side and from at least some of my co-authors. I hope all of us. So I think there's still the will to finish this up. but we're gonna have to move the milestone. So I'm thinking March or July would be reasonable. I know for myself, I'm still planning to have an unusual level of demands on my time through about November, through about February at least, and perhaps into March. But I would nonetheless aim to carve out some time to work on this, whether the milestone is in March or July. I don't know. We have any share AD feedback on consequences of moving this milestone?
I mean, moving a milestone, I mean, I prefer a milestone that are delayed because you need time, but they are met, than keeping the milestone in November 2020 and having nothing in March 21. So for me, I'm perfectly fine to move it to March 21. And it doesn't need to be aligned with an IETF meeting. You put March and July, could be any place, of course. Right?
All right, well, maybe let's make it April.
But yeah, I mean, as long as I would say pick something you think is realistic that you think you can, you can commit to. I mean, and it's not like it's not like your job is on the line if you don't get it done in April, right? So
Yeah, you never know. But yeah, okay. So, all right, sure. Let's aim for end of April. I'm hoping I have a bit of a slack time after March. So
The other thing is,
Ollie, does that?
you do
It's
have
not just me, co-authors, right?
So you could even take it under advisement now and confer with your co-authors and suggest a date on the mailing list next week, maybe.
Let's do that. That works. Ollie, did you want to say anything here? I see he's on, but Spencer, not yet.
Well, I'm good with any decision you and the working group makes. So yeah.
Okay. So that's that. Let's go on to the next. Right. So here's one of the driving considerations for having this interim meeting. We had an issue open. This was issue number 3. And the suggestion was to include a section on latency considerations. The latency considerations were, once you get into low latency kinds of stuff, then you kind of have to talk a little bit about things like RTP or WebRTC. And we had previously discussed that we should not be making, as a working group, recommendations on the use of those protocols to avoid kind of stepping on their toes. There's a little bit of, let's say, unclear sort of intentions on that trying to write this text like brings forward. Are we saying? I don't think we're. Anyway, the opinion of several of us was that there are things we could say that would not be overreaching the scope of this working group. So we put together a pull request with some proposed text, got some good comments on it. Thank you to all those that made these comments. And I don't know if we want to actually pull it up and look at this in the context of this discussion. But I know several of the people on the call have had a chance to look at it because they gave some great feedback.
So we can, right? I have the issues list pulled up in my other browser, so I could share that window if we want to actually take a look through it. It's up to you.
Sure, but the context here is really about I think what I tried to do is just sort of say that these are appropriate technologies given different domains of latency targets, and not really give any recommendations on how to use it or much in the way of much beyond just pointers to the technology, just to sort of bring it up as something that's useful for someone who's trying to operate this kind of a media service or interact with it in some cases. So I think it's reasonable. None of the comments that I did get were about yeah, this really seems like stepping on Art's toes or anything. So I'm interested to hear if the lack of such feedback is really because we think it's fine, or because this is still controversial. So I'd like to pause here and ask for input.
I think it might be helpful to pull up the actual.
Sure, let's do it.
Okay. Yeah, just give me a second. Gonna have to stop sharing and then share a different window.
While the issue come out, maybe as one of the person that was feeling strongly about this, I wanted to say that the new text is going in a great direction, and I like it very much. I think listing the use case and which protocol could apply very in a neutral way is the direction to go.
Great, thank you.
All right, can you see that?
Yeah.
All right. So which issue is it?
It's down there
Or
at the
pull
bottom
request?
with the higher. Oh yeah, pull request is probably the one we want to
Okay.
look
All right.
at. It'll be the one with the most comments. Yeah. Do you want to look at the commit and see the whole thing in context, or do you want to get into the comment threads here? I'm not sure which is.
I think for the actual commit, if there are things that you want to highlight, we can go through those sections and you can describe what you were trying to get at. Otherwise, like I'm not sure that it's useful for people to read the whole thing on on the screen share. So
let's just scroll down a bit and kind of get to the part that's kind of in question a little bit further, I think.
Okay, I'll increase the which section?
I think the sort of one that matches most closely with the questions about scope is the one that's right here. This would be the kind of ultra low latency portion of the latency considerations. So here we're talking about yeah, for me this is still a bit tight to read on the screen, but
yeah, I mean I can make it a lot bigger. It's just it's hard, I can't fit as much on the screen. So
to me this looks fine, but
okay.
Obviously the text is there. Anybody's welcome to pull it up separately and take a look. So I did have some feedback on this text. I think there's certainly some changes that we'll want to make. It was mentioned off list that we shouldn't be talking really about operators have usually so far been unsuccessful. I'll be touching that up. The bit that so what I'm trying to do here is sort of describe context for the kinds of use cases where this where trying to have sub-second glass-to-glass media latency is commonly encountered and comes up. This touches on things that are not necessarily about the kind of media broadcast stuff that I understand to be more the focus of this group, but also gets into I think there will still be some mention that the media content providers aiming to achieve this level of latency for sports, which I think ties it into what we're doing here more. Talks about some of the kinds of issues that you have to think about and why it's or tries to go over a little bit of like when you're doing just a RC thing, then you're usually only, or even a lot of the conferencing stuff, a lot of times you're talking directly from one peer to another. And you're not having to go through like all the sort of stages of video processing that you do for distributing an event. And anyway, the point being that we mention that stuff that's trying to operate in this domain usually has to use RTP or WebRTC, which is built on top of RTP. And then we don't really get into like what it takes to set that up, how you have to tune it. I think I did have a mention of having to, in somewhere, of like talking about the dejitter buffer with a reference to an appropriate RFC for it, but did not like dive into details about doing that or make any recommendations for it. Just sort of flag it as when you're trying to do this, probably you should take a look at this kind of stuff. Was the intent here. Is there anything else you guys think I should get into? Any questions about where this stands or whether?
I think my only question is, have people had an opportunity to digest this? Any thoughts on unreasonable objections or?
Well, so the one input I'll make is, I don't know if people have been following, there's been a discussion over on dispatch involving a proposal there for doing a media ingest for effectively WebRTC, which is, the real use case, as I understand it, is really around this ultra low latency ingest mechanisms so that they can do live streaming of things like games through WebRTC. And so we might want to cross-reference here or link up somehow this discussion and make note of that. That's taking place over in that other group for a transport for ingest for ULL.
As one of the co-author of the proposal, I can maybe give a few details. This is just a signaling and control protocol. So WebRTC, RTC Web at IETF had only the media stack and the encryption, but it didn't have the signaling. So people could not use it like RTMP or SRT or RIST. You need to have a proprietary control or signaling protocol that comes with it. You can see it as the same thing as RTSP and RTP. RTP taking care of the media and RTSP taking care of the control. So when we check the charter of MOPS, the control of the media transport protocol was out of scope. So that's why we put it at dispatch. And it looks like in concept, it's the same as RTSP that was designed within the M Music group. So we suggested to dispatch that might be a good working group to land further discussion and further work on it. But yeah, it can be part of that discussion. But again, I want you to be respectful to the MOPS charter.
Yeah, I think that's great, and I think it is a good point, Glenn, to reference that work is ongoing and where.
Right. Some of the comments noted that there was one comment about like this doesn't reflect the sort of ongoing changes to what's going here. So I think there's going to be an update that tries to fold some of that in. There also is a good thread, I think it might be this one further down, where maybe raise the idea that we need another issues. Yeah, that was yeah. That we maybe should do another issue referencing the there's an SVA doc that lays out the sort of best practices according to the SVA and defines a bunch of workflow stages that are a useful way to look at things. And so it came up during the discussion of how this part works that it probably is worth trying to lay out the workflow stages and give some overview to like what are the kinds of networking considerations that you have if you try to use an IP network to do the transport for these between these different sort of working stages. And again, which technologies are commonly used, what are the pros and cons that you find, what are the kind of failure modes that you hit. So I think that was a really good idea. I got a +1 from Spencer on it, I think, so far. And so we'll probably be raising an issue to take that further as well. I think we're still in the stage that we're generating issues faster than we're closing them. But yeah, that's just the way writing works, I guess. So yeah, I guess I'm looking really for like, does anybody think that this does overreach our charter? And if so, could you give an overview of why, I guess?
I mean, my personal point, without any head right now, we can say first, as an author, you can say whatever you want. Now it's a working group document, so it's up to the working group to share this point. But it's observation, right? As long as you don't try to define new protocols, we are fine. If we think there's a gap somewhere and there's a new protocol needed, then we can do something like dispatch, basically. And then dispatch would be the real working group to do it. Remember a couple of meetings ago, we were talking about Quick and saying Quick is annoying somehow, some operational issue. That's a gap somehow within Quick. So we are free to document them. I think that's kind of the purpose of this working group as well.
I mean, this seems to be more like defining a problem statement, right? I mean, it's not. I don't think it's stepping on anyone's toes. Basically saying, "Hey, there's this problem. We need to solve it. Here's the way that we're formulating the problem, and that can be used as input to a technical working group that is actually going to start driving a solution to it."
Yeah,
great.
I think that makes good sense. I'm just trying to do a quick mental revisit of all the discussions through the chartering phase of this working group. And while I certainly embrace Eric's perspective, I would like to make sure that we don't wind up looking like we are trying to do artwork in the ops area. And that was part, I think, of the concern about whether we were going to get into real-time communications or not. I think we're still clear, but I think it's important to document that we're still thinking about that and make sure that we're, conscious that we're not trying to work out all the problem statements for work that gets done in every area.
Yeah, that's basically a kind of a flashing light, a reminder, don't overstep, but we are far away from overstepping. And I see that Barry, the RTD, is in the call. So if we were completely overstepping, I'm pretty sure that Barry would have said something. And you want to say something?
I haven't seen any red flags.
Perfect, thank you.
Thanks.
If need be, what I've been seeing done in different groups was to make a separate chapter that was explicitly listed as non-normative. And so that would be completely explicit and separated from the rest of an otherwise normative document. But I'm not sure. I think it's clear in the current wording, and that might not be necessary.
I'm not sure that this. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Leslie.
Well, no, I was just going to say that I think it sounds like we don't have a problem. So it's a good suggestion that we can keep in mind for future reference. But for now, if we don't have a problem, let's not solve one.
Specifically in an informational document, sorry.
Great, sounds good to me. Then I will take that as a conclusion subject to further discussion if anybody changes their mind, but that's where we'll assume we are. Great, so let's go ahead back to the slides. Good.
Sorry if I'm overstepping here. I don't know the usual flow, but I did want to just kind of clarify the document that we're working on now. Seems to be oriented largely around current industry practice. Is that what we're kind of attempting to do? Is kind of describe, here's the status quo, here's what's actually happening, and here's the tensions that we see going forward. And maybe if we specifically around protocols say, here's the protocols that are in use today, maybe that would help define those bounds a little bit better so that we don't inadvertently overstep. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you. I think that was Mike English, if I saw correctly. So yeah, yeah, it's a good question. I think there's a lot of things about the future that we just can't know. So this is necessarily going to be a snapshot of some sort. But and maybe we should make that more clear. The goal with making an RFC, as I understand it, an informational RFC, is to make something that would have some archival value. So you don't want anything that's going to go immediately out of date. These things are, you know, supposedly some people carve them in stone or some such, and you know, but yeah, it's going to have to capture kind of current industry practice and lessons learned so far, I think, because there are some that we don't know yet. So yeah. All right. Yeah, next slide. Call this solved. So Stuart also put together a pull request. It's great to have more of these addressing another one of the issues that was open about speaking of caching and cache preloading. There was so we, you know, I gave that a quick review. It looked like it covered some good stuff. I thought maybe, you know, with regard to the interest in video, that certainly in a lot of the kind of Dash related presentations and some of the recent HLS work, there's been some, you know, some discussion of cache footprint with regard to using fragmented MP4 as opposed to TS segments, and how much it helps for this kind of thing. So I think it would be perhaps worthwhile to stick that in there.
You meant Spencer, right? Not Stuart.
Yes, I meant Spencer.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Who the heck was I thinking of? Okay, thank you. Yes, you know, that guy that is helping me write this, right? So yeah, I would encourage people to also take a look at this. I think barring any you know, a lot of further discussion, I'd love to just kind of get this in here before the deadline and post a new update to the draft. But comments are welcome here. Anybody who wants to say anything, yeah, chime in. 3, 2, 1, and let's go to the next slide. So another thing I wanted to mention is that we put the section soliciting input with the template into the draft, and that's been up for some time now. We haven't seen a whole lot of submissions on this. I think there might have been one early on, and then sort of that was it. I have recently, you know, when you're swamped with other stuff, sometimes you let things ride longer than you should have. But I did recently, with the reminders from the chairs about the upcoming deadlines here, reach out to a couple of people that I meant to reach out to. And yeah, I'm getting some good points raised from them. So I'm looking to get some at least a couple of people active in the industry to add some comments with their knowledge in it, and to get some review on this just through the back channel connections that I've got. I hope a couple of the co-authors would do the same. But I'm not sure if we need to reach out to others through some other venues and sort of highlight this. I don't know, maybe get a 5-minute slot on a couple of other conferences and tell people that we're trying to write this thing. We're soliciting feedback from people who've been operating these things, and we'd love to hear your stories of the issues you've encountered that had to do with networking, so that we can document them and get them out to a, you know, capture this kind of thing as advice for people to know what's going on.
Do you have thoughts
But-
on other, what other venues would be an appropriate place to announce this work?
Not really. I don't know.
So I've mentioned it a couple of times. I've mentioned the MOPS working group a couple of times on the Streaming Video Alliance Network working group. One of whose chairs is actually conveniently on this call as well. And I think that if we think we're at a point where we have specific questions where we could point people out the document and say, could you provide a review, particularly from the lens of X? I think that would be a reasonable thing to bring back to the working group. And now I'm going to look over at that working group co-chair if you would entertain that kind of thing on his agenda.
You mean the ADD working group?
Well, yeah, I mean, we certainly can include that, Leslie, and get the word out there. I think that strong linkage between the two groups is something we should promote, and that's a good example of a way to do it. We also may want to poke at it a few different places. So, I mean, Ali, maybe there's a way we can throw something up on the upcoming Mile High video. Maybe there's like a break or something you can throw up and just let people know that.
The agenda is up now, but yeah, there are a couple of places where we can actually put this through.
I guess there's two places. I mean, does anybody have any additional places that they might suggest?
There's a Slack for video developers where it was kind of mentioned briefly yesterday, but if we have specific things that we'd like feedback on, I can try and solicit that there.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, is that it would, particularly for people who are not used to working with IETF documents, it would probably be most useful for us to have specific questions that they could, and I guess that's the point of the template. But
yeah, I mean, does it work to just kind of take that template section and paste it into a couple of spots? I think I've got a slide that did that from the last from when we put it in. Yeah, so anyway, the submissions we've gotten filling out the template, maybe the template is not right. Like, that might be off-putting to people. It asks maybe too many things. I'm not quite sure. But for whatever reason, we haven't gotten a lot of it. So, if we started getting a trickle of those, that would be great. Anybody who can make them happen, please do.
maybe you should send a pointer to it again, to the mailing list, for instance.
Sure. I think it's just in the first section in the draft. But yeah, it's I can do that. All right, and let's go to the last slide then, which is the overview of the open issues. So I put green. We think we're about to close these. We've got some proposed text submissions. I haven't put the other new one we're going to be trying to add based on the feedback for the what was it? Having the stages of the workflow and their networking considerations. But I think that'll be useful. These are the other open issues. I think there's one more I also didn't mention that's more about just formatting in the text of the draft. That's just sort of editorial how we would interact better with the tooling and the diff process and stuff in the markdown. But the rest of these are about content that we intend to get folded into this draft in some form. One that Stuart mentioned, Spencer. One that Spencer mentioned.
It's still early there, right?
It's sure. Apparently, it's even earlier than I thought. Yeah. One that Spencer mentioned. He would love to ask if anybody just sort of has an easy path here. Is when Spencer added a section on the kind of unexpected outcome of bandwidth when COVID lockdowns kind of started happening, he referenced a page documenting some of the issues there that was just sort of put up by AT&T. But the part that he was referencing was like way down the page. It was a very long document with new things being added in the front, and there weren't sort of subsection references that we could insert there. So he said that he's not sure he can pull that same reference without getting AT&T to kind of tweak that page a little bit to make it easier. It also might be possible to just sort of quote some text to look for and leave it alone. We're also not really sure like how stable is this reference, I think. So I guess the main question was like, does anybody know where to find somebody? And I think the goal there would be to save some of us authors a few days worth of trying to track down the right person to talk to, or just give up. We might just decline it, I guess, the issue. Anyway, if anybody knows the right contact, please send it to me or Spencer, to authors list or something like that offline. And these are the open issues. We think once we get these taken care of, then the goal is that the doc would be ready to go. And we don't know of any others that we need to cover, although that may, of course, change as we try to write things and find out we're missing other things further. So that's current status. Any questions or comments about this?
Warren commented in the chat room, he wondered if Al Morton might be a contact at AT&T, and I note that Glenn unmuted. I don't know if he had a thought about who to pursue at AT&T.
So I'm wondering, and I haven't seen the document reference, is it sort of a piece put up by their contact people to explain stuff, or is it a technical document put up by a technical person? You know what I mean? Like, that might help us narrow down what group at AT&T is responsible.
Yeah, it wasn't really a technical document by a technical person, I think, although it looked like it probably had some, some input from some such person, I would say. But
I'm guessing then it's a comms document put up by their public relations or public communications department, pulling some data out. I know that other ISPs, that one of which I may be employed by, have done something similar.
Yeah.
So then would we want to find a stable reference to it, or would we like to provide the sincerest form of compliment and copy?
Yeah, it's a good question. I guess
I would recommend against copying.
Yeah, I'm trying to think
an IETF trustee.
No, so I guess I haven't looked at the source material, so I don't know how outrageous the suggestion actually is. I mean, my thinking was as much like, I mean, it can even be referenced. It's not like I'm not suggesting theft, but if you want to actually incorporate perspectives that have been perceived as, I don't know, and then maybe it becomes the thing that eats the whole document. So maybe it's not worth it.
Yeah. I guess we could pull up the reference. It's there in the I just went and grabbed it to take a look. Yeah, Kyle, do you want to
where is
back to
like the issues list?
Yeah, here I can post it in the chat. I mean, I just searched for I mean, if you look in the draft, search for COVID, and it's down at the in the references section.
Okay.
There's a link to the thing. I mean, maybe there's a better reference we could find that would be more stable, but yeah,
Sorry, this is what you're referring to.
This is the link that's there because it's the best we had. But there's not like individual links to these entries, and he was citing a specific one that had something in particular that we wanted that was worth including here. I think it was the I think it was citing some statistics that came up, right? So the way that it jumped from a smaller bandwidth utilization average to a bigger one when the lockdown started or something like this, right? So there's like a particular date that was picked, and by now I think it may have scrolled off the page, perhaps. So this is the kind of like unstable reference that we're kind of looking at here. So we're looking to get a more stable reference, and we think
April 30th, I think. Core network traffic was up 22% yesterday compared to a similar day at the end of February. So there's 5 bullets, and I think it might be worth and legitimate to simply effectively quote that in the text and say it's from the site. If the reference evaporates,
yeah, okay.
This is for just a couple of sentences, couple of points. I don't think you need to. It's pretty correct to do it, right?
Yeah, that's legitimate to just cite a few bullets and then click and note the citation.
Yeah.
And by the way, in the coming weeks, there is an IEB workshop on the COVID impact on the network, which is kind of a private event, but the publication will be public, of course. So this may be worse as well.
Okay.
Put it in the chat.
Yeah. I think the section that's there just went through several different sort of separate references and gave them as examples of things that have been observed and publicly reported, and just providing the link to it. Anybody that wants to follow the link is going to have a hard time looking at it, but I guess it doesn't really matter. We can just say what we were pulling out of it, give our source, and that's good enough. Okay, that's fine.
So Jake, would it be also just reasonable to ask the group, because I think a lot of our organizations are either publishing material formally or part of groups that are producing at the moment documents on COVID-19 responses. Would you be willing for us to send those your way so we can include? I mean, are you looking for a lot of references, or are you just looking for one to prove a point, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Yeah, I think we're not looking to keep rewriting the section over and over again for a long time. I think if we've got something stable we can put in there instead, that'd be great. It's the way it's phrased is sort of just, here's several examples demonstrating what we saw, and I think that's maybe good enough. But maybe refining it with the newer information. Yeah, that does seem worthwhile, I guess, since it's still kind of going on.
I think if you start by quoting this one and getting that nailed up, it's perfectly legitimate to see if there are other people who have data that they could contribute, and if you wind up with a mass of data, then we can figure out what to do with that.
Sure. So yeah, if you want to send over the resources that are up, that would be helpful. Appreciated. I guess that's so yeah, back to the issues list. If there's anything else anybody wants to talk about, I guess I'm happy to talk about it, or you can just add things to the comments. I put links there if you get to the slides. Otherwise, I think I am done.
Were there any that you wanted to talk about in more depth other than the COVID one?
Oh, actually, maybe, yeah, the section on ads. So I haven't heard from Matt Stock, who gave some proposed text that included adding himself as an author, but I haven't heard whether he's, willing to take on the rest of the author stuff. I'm kind of assuming in the absence of follow-up, probably not. But nonetheless, I think it's still a good idea to add a section on ads, and we'll probably be doing that. But I don't know. I'll reach out to him again, I think. But
it's possible his world was upended by COVID as much as anything else.
Yeah, I'm sure many of us are in that same boat. Yeah, or by any number of things. Yeah. So. I guess my tentative reaction, because I had some feedback on the text of the pull request. You know, I was willing to go ahead with refining that and kind of taking a submission. I'm not sure what the sort of, you know, what constitutes authorship versus contributorship versus you know, an acknowledgement. But you know, at this point,
I think that that's always a slippery slope, and I would suggest, for practical purposes, this is just personal suggestion. My co-chair is welcome to disagree with me, and anyone else. Take the suggestions if they look like they're useful, and put him in the acknowledgement section. If you succeed in reaching out to him and find that he's willing to share the load of authorship, not just of this section, then that can be a separate discussion.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, I certainly think that there's a lot of value in adding something and going over the you know, the considerations about advertising with regard to operating video services, and especially, you know, where it impacts networking. I think that's a great suggestion. Absolutely. The text of it, I think, needs some work a little bit. The one that's been posted, but I'll just kind of take the input as advice. I think it falls under the note well, certainly. You know, so I'll just use that as guidance at this point. And see if there's any further developments.
Sorry, I had to step away for a second. Is this Matt Stock's pull request?
Yeah. That's
okay. I work on that, so I'm happy to pick that up and work on it more and consult with him.
Okay. Yeah. I don't think I've met him. I think it's you know, valuable discussion, worthwhile point. I'm not sure, you know, we'd have to have I think we do have space for another author if he's really interested in becoming an author. I don't know with the co-authors whether, you know, we'd have to come to some kind of consensus. So if he wants to do that, we should have an offline discussion about it further. That's one of the stopping points on the pull request as it stands, but there's another couple of things to you know, change about the text. Yeah, I mean, the contributions are very welcome and much appreciated, certainly. So I appreciate you passing that along. Thank you, Mike.
Yep.
Great.
All right. So if there's nothing else, then I'm done with this bit.
Okay.
All right. I don't think there's anything else on the agenda.
Well, I think the only other thing on the agenda is just maybe a brief look ahead to the actual working group meeting that we'll be having in a couple of weeks, few weeks. I've lost track. Currently the agenda is fairly theoretical. Certainly happy to have more agenda items if people have things that they want to cover. Jake, I don't know if you'll have the wherewithal to do an update from the updates, today's updates.
Well,
it might just be, we had an interim, here are the notes, here's the updated version, okay, thanks, bye.
Yeah, I think if you guys want to just point to the interim recording and resources and advise people to take a look at it if they're interested, that sounds good to me. Yeah, I don't think we need to do another update in 2 weeks, really.
Yeah, no, I hear you, and you know, as discussed earlier, we wanted to do this as an interim to make sure we had the time to go through things thoughtfully and carefully, and our experience with the plenary sessions are that they're always a rush somehow.
So we have a question from the Jabber room, believe it or not. Spencer asks, who in MOPS is participating in the IAB workshop?
It's a good question. Anyone? Not saying anyone stepping up to that on this call.
Well,
Go ahead.
Hey, so I'm not directly participating, but Jason Livingood, I believe, has submitted a position paper about COVID impacts and stuff like that to the working group. So company-wise, we're participating.
Right. So to connect the dots for anyone who missed it, your colleague is planning to participate, so you should have some visibility into the workshop.
Yes, and we'll be presenting results from Comcast into it.
Right.
By the way, video plays a pretty big role in the networks. No surprise, since COVID hit. It remains the number one transport. The number one thing transport, even when you take into account the growth in stuff like virtual meetings.
Yeah. So in terms of agenda items for 109, this is what I had shared on the mailing list, so there's no news here yet. When we had the IETF 108 virtual, there was interest in having the Medico folks report on their experiences. I or Kyle have yet to reach out to them to see if they would be willing to talk about it. They seemed interested when we were in the throes of the 108 session, so I'm optimistic that will happen. And then also from 108, we had the media operations use case for an augmented reality application on edge computing infrastructure by Reena and Krishna, Draft Krishna MOPS AR use case. So I'm hopeful we'll get that on the agenda. So as Eric said in the chat, we're certainly open to people bringing in descriptions of work being done elsewhere, or other experiences in video, so on and so forth. So yeah, be creative, make suggestions, and happy to hear any thoughts on how we can best shape the agenda for 109.
Is there going
Alex?
to be?
Oh, Jacob, you started. You go.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Was there going to be an update from anybody from SVA? I know we've had several of those previously, and it sounds like there's been some progress. I haven't been tracking it.
So that's a good suggestion. I can see about tracking that down. Thanks.
Do we want to put some time for new groups at the IETF with charter could be of interest to MOPS? I'm thinking specifically of the new S-frame group, which is media encryption independently of the transport protocol, or maybe web transport that just been created with Will Lowe from Akamai as a chair. Is that something that would be interesting to the group?
I think it certainly would be.
Well, I will follow up on this then.
And basically, I really see this group. If in another working group, there is a presentation or a draft, which could be interesting for MOPS because it's about media and operation. I see no problem at all to have the same author presenting once into the real working group, and this one here just for information, right? The goal is to get really cross-area, cross-working group collaboration. So, yes, Alex, that's a good idea.
Yep. Great. I appreciate the input and wish I had updated the dates and footers on my slides, but life is like that.
No problem.
I'm just gonna go crawl off now. Anything else? Kyle, do you have anything else? I wait till you step out of camera before I ask you. Sorry.
No, I don't have anything else.
All right. Well, then I will thank everyone for their time. And again, thanks to Jake and his co-authors for all the work on the document, and look forward to talking to everybody in a few weeks.
Yeah, thanks to everyone. Make sure that you've all signed the virtual blue sheets. So.
And I got here just in time. Thank you all.
Bye-bye to you, Spencer.
Well played.
Yes.
Very well played.
See you on the mailing list.
Thanks for joining, Stuart.
Yeah,
Let someone else explain that. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.